So here is our choose your own adventure, and I'm going to run it and show you a problem with it. Here it prints out the story, and I need to enter in a choice. I'm going to enter in choice of 4. Now notice I don't have a fourth choice. I only have choice 1 and choice 2. So what happens when I enter in choice 4? Well, it prints out the part of the story where I run for the door, right? The boy opened the door. So this is not correct, right? What should happen if I enter in a choice that's not listed? Well, what should happen is it should print out an error message and ask me to enter the choice again. And so that's what we're going to program here. Let's see. We're right here in our, this is where the user enters in their choice. And so what we can do is they enter in their choice, and if their choice is not what we want it to be, then we're going to print out an error message. And then what are we going to do is have them re-enter in their choice. Okay. Now once that finishes, we want the program to check their choice again, and if it's not what we want to do line 72 and line 73 again and again and again until the user enters in a 1 or a 2. Okay. So how can we get this done? Well, what do we have available? We have branches we can use, or we have while loops and for loops we can use. Will a branch get the job done for us, where we will repeat line 72 and 73 over and over and over again, as long as choice is not what we want it to be? No, right? A branch only executes once. So we obviously need to use a loop, and now the choice is for loop or while loop. And if you remember, the for loop is when you know how many iterations you want the block of code to run. While loop is when you don't know how many iterations you want the block of code to run. So in this case, do we know or we do not know? Well, we don't know, right? The user could enter in bad input infinitely. So we want to use a while loop. Okay, so I'm going to indent that into my while loop. Now what's going to be my Boolean expression for the while loop? Well, what we want here in English is keep doing while choice is not 1 or 2, right? So how can we turn this into an actual Boolean expression? Well, it's kind of simple, right? What we can do is use inequalities, and we could say while choice is less than 1 or choice is greater than 2. All right. So when is this expression true? Right? Well, or is true if at least one of the expressions are true. So let's go ahead and say -8, right? For -8, this is true, and this is false. So or would make this entire expression true, okay? And it would say error. Now, what about if we did +8? Well, then this would be false, and this would be true. And so at least one of them is true, so the whole expression is true. Right? Now, what about if we do a good number like 1? Right? Well, 1 is not less than 1. Right? 1 is equal to 1. 1 is not less than 1, so this would be false. And 1 is not greater than 2. Right? So these would both be false, and it would not do this. And it would just continue on with the program. Okay? So the Boolean expression is correct. And now let's see if it actually works. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to enter in -9, error, enter a choice. I'm going to enter in -1, error, 0, error. I'm going to enter in 4, error, 8, error. I'm going to enter in 2, and it continues with the program with the boy opening the door. Okay, so this is a way that you can error check your program. And here we probably want to write a better error message and say invalid choice, try again. Okay. Now, yeah. So what I'm thinking is that since you're going to have to be doing this over and over and over again in all of your function definitions, right here and here and there, over and over again, what we can do is create a function that does this for us. Okay, so that way we could just call that function here. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's go to the top of our program and let's type in def take input. Let's call it something different, right? Take input. And what are we going to do here in the take input? Well, we're going to do this. Whoa, I'm sorry, not that. We're going to do this. Okay. And what is that going to do? It's going to take in the input, and it's going to keep on doing the while loop until they enter in a good choice. It's not going to break out of the while loop until their choice is what we want it to be. So once we get to here, what we can do is we could return the good choice. Right? This is, once it gets to line 18, that means choice is a good choice. So it's going to go ahead and jump back down to right over here. And so what we can say here is we could say, instead of doing all of this, we could say take underscore input. Okay. Now, how is this going to help us? Because when we run the program, it comes down to the bottom. There's a function call. It jumps up to here to line 969. And this actually should be called main. So let's go ahead and call this main. Okay. There's a function called a main at the bottom. It jumps up to line 69, prints out the story. Now it's trying, it does the equal sign, and the equal sign evaluates the right side of the equal sign first, right? So it does this. But hey, this is not a value that we could put inside of choice. So this is a function call. So we need to run that function first. So it's going to go ahead and jump up to here. It's going to run this function. Right? The user is going to enter in input. It's going to enter in, let's say, the number 2. No, I'm sorry, let's say the number 3. Right? So choice is equal to 3. This while loop statement is true. Prints out invalid choice. Enter an input again. I'm going to say -3. It's going to come back up. This is true. It's going to say error. Enter an input. I'm going to say 1. It's going to come back up to the while loop. This is false, right? Because the choice is now a good choice. So since it's false, it comes down to line 17. Then it goes to line 18, and we're returning choice. Right? And what is choice? Well, choice is 1. Okay? Choice is the number 1. So what does return do? It returns back to where this function was called. Right? So it's going to return back down to here, and it's returning choice. So it's going to return what was in choice, and what was in choice was the number 1. So now choice is going to be equal to 1, and then line 82, this is going to be true, and it's going to go over to invaders. Okay? And it's going to do the same thing. So when we go over to invaders, let's say we're over here, right? What we want to do here is the exact same thing, right? We don't want to take in the input. We want to run the take input function. Right? And so that way we're saving ourselves lines of code that we need to write. Because if we didn't make this take input function definition, we would need like 3 or 4 lines of code here. And then we would need 3 or 4 lines of code here. And then we would need 3 or 4 lines of code of here. So by writing this function, we are writing it once, and we're using it many times, right? Allowing us to be lazy programmers.